So how can members of Congress represent people they've never met? In Federalist number 56, James Madison answers one of the older criticisms of the House for the time, and that was, can lawmakers in a distant capital truly understand the needs of ordinary citizens? And Madison's going to say yes here in this essay, not because they know every detail, but it's because the representatives will know what matters most. I'm Matt Hasquin. I'm a high school history and civics teacher, and we've been making our way through all the Federalist Papers together. We're going in order, and we're up to number 56 now. And I want to go ahead and join Mr. Madison again, and let's talk about the House of Representatives one more time. So let's set the stage. Now, critics of the Constitution believe that the House of Representatives was too small and too far from home to understand the diverse needs of the states. And after all, America was already pretty large with different economies and customs and different industries. And Madison provides an answer here with a structural truth, and that is good representation requires broad knowledge, not encyclopedic knowledge. And the Constitution gives representatives enough access to know what they need. So at the heart of Madison's argument, he divides a representative's knowledge into two categories. One is local knowledge, and two is national knowledge. And he goes on to argue that the House does not need members to know every detail about every county and every town. Instead, representatives need to know the general character of their districts, just, not every street. Now, Madison explains the essential knowledge that lawmakers need in the following way. He's like, you need to know agriculture, which is the backbone of most states. You need to know about commerce and manufacturing patterns. You need to know about taxation and revenue systems. You need to understand state laws that shape everyday life. And you need to know the major regional interests. And he argues that these broad subjects are manageable, even for a Congress representing such a large nation. So when we get farther into the argument here with Madison, he points out that districts are not impossibly large within the states, because at the founding, each colonial district had about 30,000 people. And representatives lived in the same state as their constituents, and they had strong political incentives to understand local needs. And Madison believed, correctly, that people know their regions far better than critics assume. And representatives want to avoid embarrassment or ignorance. And so he goes on to argue that the state legislatures remain the guardians of detailed local knowledge, because states handle things like criminal law, property law, most civil justice, education, transportation, and family law. And that leaves Congress to deal with national defense, international relations, taxation, and interstate commerce. The local details remain local, and national issues require a national vision. So Madison emphasizes a point that we often overlook, and that is representatives have strong incentives to understand their own districts because they must run for re-election, their reputations are public, voters can remove them from office, newspapers report on their actions, and communities will hold them accountable. So the people will not tolerate a representative who doesn't understand them. And then critics will claim that the capital was too far away for representatives to actually stay connected for the time they were in. Madison replies, states aren't as large as the people fear, and that representatives travel occasionally, not constantly, and communication, though slow, basically as fast as a horse could carry someone, it still works. And community expectations force the representatives to stay informed. And he's arguing from the technology of the time. But the logic still remains. Distance does not destroy representation. So as we look at Madison's chain of reasoning in this particular essay, his logic needs to be tightened down a little bit. So we can go with our 5 easy steps. So first, representatives need general knowledge, not total knowledge. And then the most important information is manageable and accessible. Districts are small enough for the representatives to know relatively well. And then state governments handle detailed local matters. And then re-election pressures ensure that representatives stay informed. So there's your homework assignment. I summed it up in 5 easy steps for you. So now, if we look at Madison's tone in this particular essay, what his voice is like, he writes with a degree of reassurance because he's not being defensive, he's being methodical. He takes the criticism seriously, and he responds to it with structural logic. And that is, representation depends on understanding the whole, not just memorizing the parts. And so with that being said, then we look at Madison's moral dimension, his moral insight in this particular essay, and that is a representative's duty is to know enough to govern wisely and to know that they can be removed if they don't. So that means his argument is representation is grounded in trust and responsibility and connection and something we lack sorely today, humility. So according to Madison, good government requires knowledge, but not omniscience. So this debate, though, hasn't gone away. Today we still argue about things like whether Congress understands real Americans, whether districts are too large, whether politicians are out of touch, and whether local issues get ignored. And Madison's response in 56 still resonates today. You have a representative system that works when districts are sized to keep members aware and elections to hold them accountable. And that balance is delicate, but it's done so intentionally. Now, in our modern times, we could argue, though, that we're looking at a country where we don't have one representative in Congress for every 30,000 people in their district. So we have a Congress of a House of Representatives with only 435 members and a country of 330-ish million people. So we're looking at, one representative for several 100,000 people. I can't do the math right now, sorry. But then Madison had proposed an amendment to the Constitution within the Bill of Rights where we would have one member of Congress for every 10,000 people. And that amendment's out there still floating in the ether because it hasn't been ratified and there's not a time limit upon it. But then, are we going to be able to handle a Congress with 33,000 members of the House of Representatives? That's a bit unwieldy. But went off on a little tangent there. Our 3 takeaways tonight for Essay 56 is 1, that Congress doesn't need to know everything. It just needs the essentials. 2, state governments handle detailed local matters. And 3, elections force representatives to stay connected to their districts. Federalist number 56 reminds us that representation isn't about perfection. Rather, it's about connection. And so a representative in the House must understand the character of the people they represent, the character of the folks back home, the needs of the region, the district that they represent, and also the bigger region around them. And then finally, the responsibilities of the national government. Not every detail, not every statistic, but the truth of the communities they serve. Representation is not omniscience, it's accountability. So, I'm Matt Hasquin, once again, and this was another one of those things I think we should all just know by being alive, at least on the American point of view. For those of you folks outside the country, I don't know that you're required to know these things. But anywho, if this particular episode helped you see how representation and representatives can serve, large areas, large districts well, I'd like you to go ahead and find somebody that loves government too, and maybe share it with them, repost this thing. Maybe give me a follow, because tomorrow, Saturday, I'm going to go ahead and tackle Federalist number 57. And this one is on who deserves to hold office in the first place. All right, thanks for hanging around if you hung in the video this long, because this one was kind of wordy, but I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.